Anytime you read the news and you read HousingWire, you're going to get distracted by a lot of different stories. You have to know about them, but what you do with them after that is really the key. And I spoke with Eric Bramlett. He's the broker owner of Bramlett Partners in Austin, Texas, and he runs a 126 agent brokerage. And he talks about how he differentiates his brokers to compete with the bigger guys. And he does a great job with it. He's very focused on it, and he will spill all his secrets. So enjoy the podcast. Eric, from the great city of Austin, Texas, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Tracey. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, welcome to the RealTrending podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Happy to be here.
Yeah, so we will just get right into it. So you built Bramlett Partners as a local Austin brokerage, and you really still, go with that local identity. So how do you balance competing pressures from the national and the tech-driven models while preserving that kind of local flavor?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. We have less of a hard time now than we did in the past. We're 126 agents now. What we say is that we're big enough to back you, small enough to know you. We do have to, play in the tech space, and we develop quite a bit of in-house tech. I'm pretty proud of it. We feel like we compete pretty well in that area. But I mean, it's just, we have an advantage in that we can still give that personal touch, and we'll be able to as long as I'm here, I guess. So you lean into what you're great at, and we're really great at knowing all of our agents. Like I literally know the name of every agent in the company, and I don't think any of the national companies could say that. I mean, even locally, we're 126. Like Compass is our biggest competitor. They're like 1,200. Like there's nobody at that company that's going to know every single agent there. So yeah, just compete where you can win and lean into what you're good at.
Now, do you have a growth strategy? Like, do you plan on building, or do you want to stay kind of a boutique brand in the market?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, I live in Austin. I love Austin. I've been in Central Austin for a long time. So we do have a presence in Waco, which is about an hour and a half away. Great agents there. But we really don't plan to grow beyond this market. How big will we get? I'm really not sure. What's worked incredibly well for us is really, really tight hiring standards to make sure that, everybody we partner with, that we're looking at this as a long-term fit, not just something like, oh, hey, you'll do. So we have grown really slowly because of it, but our retention rate is 90% versus the average in the market 65. So our net growth has been pretty good. And that, I would say, that's the growth strategy, is we'll continue focusing on retention. And when we focus on retention, the growth kind of handles itself.
And what do you think are the secrets to retaining great agents? Like, what do you think is your superpower as it relates to that?
Yeah, I mean, it starts on the way in. You have to be really disciplined about who you're, interviewing. You have to be really disciplined about saying no whenever it's not a fit. The recruiting job, which I was in for a long time in the brokerage, is tough because you're effectively selling. And whenever you have somebody that wants to buy your product, but they're not the right customer, saying no to that can be pretty hard. So I think that being very disciplined about who you're partnering with on the way in is that's the kind of the secret sauce, I would say. And then truly living it. Like, it can be a big sales pitch to say, oh, we don't focus on recruiting, we focus on retention, but we honestly do. And we don't spend any time cold calling agents from outside the firm. But we spend a lot of time taking our own agents to coffee and meeting with our own agents and checking in to see how they're doing. How can we help you? And the side effect of that, the byproduct, is that we get a lot of referrals from our agents, and the referral folks are, awesome usually, right? Like generally speaking, that's going to be a lot higher conversion rate on that. They're going to more than likely be a fit versus if you're just like cold calling hundreds of agents a day. We tried it and it just didn't work for us at all. So this model seems to work.
Okay, great. You talked about building some tech tools. So let's talk about that. Tell me a little bit about what you built and what you're offering at your brokerage.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm a big fan of like less is more. So what you'll see a lot of times when you're buying tech is that you just keep piling on. Oh, here's another app. Here's another app. Here's another app. We're always trying to reduce the number of dashboards that the agents have to log into, and we have it down to one. right? It's Follow Up Boss is where they log in, and now that's a commercial product, but they have what's called an open API. So we have a robust backend that's integrated very tightly. Like it's literally the same dashboard, and the agents call it Follow Up Boss still, but it's where all of their client searches live. It's where all of their CMAs live. It's where all of their market updates live, where they set up tours. It has a more robust feature in terms of like profiling households. So, we'll have both partners if that exists. And then like if they have kids, if they have pets, what are their birthdays? When's the home purchase anniversary? Are they gluten-free? Things like that. So it's something that we started building, 4 years ago, I think, this application. And we just continue to add more resources to it, meaning money. And yeah, I love it. That's like one of my favorite parts of the job is continuing to add product features. Every month we're rolling out new things. Mike Morgan, our director of ops, actually proposed to me that we stop rolling things out so quickly, that we start doing things in quarterly batches, because it's like, Eric, it's overwhelming. We're not really sure what's out there because you keep pushing so much stuff out. So I love it. You can probably tell my eyes light up when I talk about the tech. So.
I mean, that's smart though, to not overwhelm agents, to, really have like a quarterly push, because I think the number of, even if you have one sign in and you have, you like simplicity, it still can get overwhelming for agents.
Yeah, 100%. And what you have to understand is that they're not like, no one agent is going to use every feature in the product. So you just like watch who's using what. We track everything in terms of how much adoption it's getting. And then you go to the agents who are using it and you say like, hey, how can we make this better? But again, like you make it additive. You don't pull the rug out from underneath them. At the end of the day, the technology that agents, like great agents, use more than anything is literally their phone. We had a win this morning where one of our managers had proposed that we start sending the weekend calls, like we have leads duty, and that those calls go directly to the agent instead of the receptionist. And took one weekend, and a woman on the recording says, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like you're the fifth agent I've called, and nobody else answered their phone." So at the end of the day, tech is great to augment what works, but picking up the phone, calling people, answering your phone, giving great service, that's what truly moves the needle. And if the technology is getting in the way of that, or if it is distracting agents from what they should be focusing on, then the tech's not helping. And so we like it to kind of be in the background. We like it to be there to help, but not to be a hurdle.
Are you investing in AI at all, or building a program on your own or app on your own?
Yeah. So most of these like AI companies are integrating with usually OpenAI with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
We're integrated with OpenAI, and we're actually integrated with Grok as well. Some other alternative LLMs we're looking at now for cost reasons, but it's in like really boring ways, right? Because we look at what are the agents already doing that works really well, and then how can we help them do it faster and more reliably. So one of the first implementations we made was we have an explainer for CMAs and statistics. So, agents are sending stats to their clients all the time, and to sit down and absorb it and then put together a really good email about a specific CMA can take you 30 minutes sometimes. And so what the tool does, you run the CMA, and then you can either click AI Analyze and it'll send you notes back, or AI Compose and it'll write an email. And then the agents need to read it because they need to understand it as well. But rather than like observing, absorbing, and then regurgitating, they're just like reading it once and then deleting out what they don't want to include. So it's saved a ton of time. And we have implemented a number of other features like that on different screens. And it's all in the interest of like doing it better, doing it faster, making it a bit easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So Austin does hold a special place in my heart. I'm in Florida. I was really upset they didn't beat the Gators, University of Texas this weekend. But my son and his wife both went to University of Texas, and they got married there. So awesome. Love the city. But we also noticed a lot of, the market was just booming. They moved since in about a year ago. Noticed the market was booming, impossible to get into restaurants there for a while. And now you're having some rapid swings, with the market. I'm particularly talking downtown, but obviously Austin is more than just downtown. So how do you coach your agents to kind of adapt to those market shifts?
Yeah. So I will say the last 5-6 years have been a whipsaw, no question about it. We boomed harder than any market in the US, I think. We saw something like 40% appreciation in 2021. Yeah, and then it didn't come like, well, I guess you accurately could say it was crashing down. We didn't ever retreat, lower than where we started in 2020. I think we're at like early 2021 numbers now, but that happened in mid 2022. So we've had a little over 3 years now of this really bad market, and it almost feels like the rest of the country is now kind of catching up, unfortunately, to the recession we've been in. But yeah, we've been cheerleading for a long time, and you have to first and foremost help the agents understand, like, you can't control the market. You can only control how you react to it and what strategies you're going to use. And it's a pretty bad strategy to say, like, I'm just going to wait for the market to come back. And then you have to motivate, right? Because I went through personally, the 2008 recession was really scary. I was really young at the time, and I tried to get out of the business. And I didn't for some, personal financial reasons. I didn't want to have to sell my house, things like that. But the habits that I built during that tough time, that got me through it, that's really what kind of built my personal business. I did 20 million for the first time in 2013, and then 25 million the next year. And I think I capped out at like 45 or something before I stopped selling. And that was all because I muscled through the great financial crisis. And that's what's happening now. The agents that are, working really, really hard and they're finding stability and some success in this really tough market, those are the agents that are going to be incredible market leaders here in a year or two when the market starts to come back. So that's the motivational side. And then, sorry to keep going on about this, I can talk about it for a long time. You also have to understand expertise, and a one size fits all doesn't make sense. You mentioned downtown. Absolutely. There's 12 months of inventory downtown. And when you go to 2 million plus, which a lot of it is, there's something like 18 months of inventory. So if I were to tell somebody in like Southwest Austin, where the market's actually performing pretty well, that, they're in the doldrums and it's just like downtown, that wouldn't be honest. So you have to get really good at looking at submarkets, and you have to get really good at understanding any particular client's situation and motivations, right? And then looking at the lifetime value of that client. Because if you have a seller that wants to list this year, but maybe doesn't want, they're pricing it reasonably, but they're not 100% going to succeed. This could be a 2-year commitment with these guys. And when you look at it in terms of lifetime value of the client, instead of just like, how quickly can I get this deal closed? That's how you'll build a career, and that's how you'll build a business versus just like trying to muscle through the next year.
Yeah. And so you were selling, were you still selling when you were starting your brokerage, or did you stop to open your brokerage?
Yeah, no. So we were a little tiny. I opened the brokerage when it was just myself and one other agent, Will McIntosh, who's still with us. And then, we grew kind of as like whatever the opposite of a team-ridge is. That's kind of how we grew. And then in 2020, it's really funny because it was like the month before COVID hit. I remember I was on a ski trip with a friend, and I said, yeah, man, we were like 20 agents at the time. I said, I think I have something. I think we can grow this. And that's whenever we started putting systems together in terms of like growing the actual brokerage. And then I didn't like stop selling until I think it was the fall of 2021. It became like so clear that I could no longer provide my clients amazing service because I was spending so much time on the brokerage, and I had to like quit selling at that point in time. So
I think that's a difficult decision for a lot of brokers, to quit selling, because, you're making this money selling. But if you don't stop selling, you're never going to grow the brokerage to what you might want to. But it's like that little middle period when you stop selling and haven't grown that can be really hard to take. And it's like a big obstacle from a lot of the brokers I talk to. How did you handle that?
So I compared it to the decision to stop working buyers, right? I hung on and worked buyers far too long. I was a very high performing listing agent, but then same thing, you bring a $700,000 buyer who's like close to your house, I'm not too good for 20 grand, right? But that's short-term thinking. And the long-term thinking is really like, hey, I know that if I free up this time, I will then fill it with more productive things to do. So the decision to stop selling was very similar. I said, look, the brokerage is seeing a lot of gains, a lot of growth. And every time I go work a deal, that's pulling me away from what is going to succeed in the long term. And you have to be okay with revenue, your personal income going down for a short period of time. But you have to have a plan. I mean, you have to know that it's going to go back up and go back up higher. Otherwise, why are you doing it? But I will say, like, in this whole journey from individual agent to, now mid to large size brokerage, my least favorite part was that desert whenever I was still managing and I was still selling, because I had my clients' issues that I had to deal with. And then I also had all my agents' clients' issues. And it was a lot. It was a whole lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And, at 126 agents, culture is more difficult to, kind of keep and that. How do you preserve your culture as you grow?
That's a big question. We literally have it every week. We talk about how do you scale culture, and every additional person you bring into an organization, be it a virtual assistant all the way to a top producing agent, it's going to be a bit harder to make sure everybody's aligned. Not to beat a dead horse, but on the way in is the best time to make sure that you have a cultural match. So we're always looking at, this person that we're talking with right now, potential partnership, like, are they a cultural match? Do their long-term goals align with ours? But before you even get there, you have to have it defined. So, we defined our mission statement and our core values pretty early on, and they're not just a buzzword to us. It's not just like writing on the wall. Every meeting we try to, point it back to at least one core value so that it reminds everyone. And whenever we see people like living those core values, we like to celebrate it. So it's constant work. It's like gardening. I mean, you're always tending to it, but the payoff is huge. As much as we spend on technology and systems, and we've got this big nice office now and all this stuff, it pales in comparison to culture. Culture is why people come. It's why they stay. And so it's the most important part of our jobs, is to make sure that doesn't go the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to talk trends a little bit. What are you seeing? And this doesn't have to be just technology, but what are you seeing as the greatest opportunities for real estate in the next maybe 6 months to a year?
In Austin locally, this is probably national now that it seems like this sort of downturn has hit nationally. It's staying focused on what works. I'm a huge fan of the Pareto principle, and focusing on that 20% that's moving the needle on 80% of your results is what's critical. I'll be vague, I guess. It's really like hitting the basics, calling people back. If you work leads, it's making sure that you're hitting, speed lead right, making sure that you're, providing really excellent follow-up. But more importantly, for most career agents, that's going to be SOI based, and SOI based has a really long ROI on it, meaning like the work you do today, you generally see the results, 6, maybe 12 months from now. And so staying consistent with that, focusing on the effective, and then just considering everything else noise in a tumultuous market, which I think we're in nationally now. That's the biggest opportunities. Like, let other people worry about, politics. Let other people worry about like what our mortgage rate's going to do, or what's going to happen with this Compass merger, things like that. That's all noise. Focus on great client service, focus on calling people back, and maybe pick up some tech efficiency gains along the way. But that's the opportunity, is like let other people be distracted in this very distracting environment.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I mean, the whole buzz with the Anywhere Compass merger, and just a lot of the lawsuits happening with Zillow and CoStar and, whatever. It is easy to get distracted by all of that, and then, get a little too invested in it in ways that possibly could harm your personal business. What advice do you have for staying out of it? Because you need to know about these things. Obviously, you need to read HousingWire and find out about them. But you also can't get in the weeds with them.
Yeah, I mean, so there you go. Like HousingWire Digest, great, right? Maybe don't read the same story over and over. A friend of mine texted me he said, "Oh, this is really funny," and he sent me a recording of the CoStar meeting where they were calling out the FTC for Zillow. And I said, "Mike, I'm sorry, man. Like I've sort of been trying to stay out of the fray, because I'm trying to focus more on like what's moving the needle for us." He said, "Good, stay out of it. It's miserable over here," and I think that's really kind of it. Look at it. First question you need to ask yourself is like, how does this affect me? Mm-hmm. So the NAR settlement, for example, which turned out to not be a big deal for great agents, that potentially could affect things a lot. Like, okay, I need to change these systems, right? I need to start getting buyer rep agreements, whatever. Great. can I control it? Can I affect change on the NAR settlement? I'll use that. We'll go back in time and talk about the NAR settlement. No, it can't affect it at all, right? Like all I can do is react. And then you go, great. Well, how much reaction does this require right now? And you go, need to learn a buyer rep agreement. Moving on, And so you kind of run through those things, but it can get hard because it feels good to feel, right? It feels good to have an opinion and to say these Zillow lawsuits are wrong, right? This is the wrong thing, or who's going to let this Anywhere merger happen? The FTC has to come in and do this, which by the way is silly. It's like they're not even anywhere close to monopolistic market share. They're at like 20% versus
not even. I think it's more like 15. Yeah, it's
really small. I mean, they're not going to get anywhere close to in any market that anybody cares about. Like there are these little tiny markets where they might have 50%. But back to it, you put it all in perspective. Like how much does it affect me, and avoid the question of like how much could this affect me. That's when you're out in speculation land. That's when you're creating problems for yourself. And then honestly, just like go pick up the phone and call some past clients, or go work out, do something that's going to be productive. Because sitting here and obsessing over a Zillow lawsuit or an Anywhere merger or whatever it is not going to move. It's not going to make your life any better. So.
No, but stay informed with HousingWire.
No, that doesn't mean stick your head in the sand at all. For me, one of the services we try to provide our agents is a filter through which they can stay informed. And it doesn't mean I would tell them not to read HousingWire or any other publication, but for them to know that, hey, if something alarming is coming, that we're going to let them know. And like the last time we told them like, hey, something alarming is coming, it was whenever we had assumed, survive till 25. I mean, it rhymed. Like that's what everything looked like it was going to, I think we're going to turn around. And then whenever we saw the tea leaves and we said, this is not going to happen. It was very early in the year, maybe even late 2024. And that's when we said, guys, look, this is going to affect your business. Now you can control how you react to it, but like pay attention to this. We had just gone through the NAR settlement. Everybody was trained on that. That was, not a huge deal, but we said, this is going to be a bigger deal. We're not going to see a recovery this year. Pay attention to that. So,
yeah, I know. I think that the settlement, you had to pay attention to that one, obviously. Yes. I mean, everyone in real estate had to pay attention to that one. And the sky is falling. The sky didn't fall. And the truth is that, like you said, agents and brokers who really educated themselves and adapted are doing just fine now.
We picked up a lot of market share as a brokerage during that time. And I like to think that we helped, that our leadership team helped with that a little bit. And it was because we said, okay, these are the things we need to worry about. This is actionable. At the time, we said, we don't know what's going to happen with commission. Will it compress commission down? Yeah. It might. But if it does, then you have two choices, like quit or don't. And if you don't want to quit, then like figure out how to work in that environment. Well, our commission didn't change at all. I think it went up a little tiny bit. So it wasn't something that was even worth spending a lot of time worrying about. The what if could have been awful. Like, I mean, if that really, if great agents really didn't provide that much value, this was a perfect scenario to really compress commission margins down a lot. But it just didn't. Like for whatever reason in the city of Austin, great agents are worth about 3% aside. That's just what we get paid, no matter, who comes and competes with us, be it Redfin, be it Zillow, NAR lawsuit. Like that's just what the consumers will pay for great service. Yeah.
So what advice do you have for other brokers or team leaders who are trying to stay ahead and they don't have like massive VC funding and capital?
Yeah. So I don't have that either. To stay informed as we just talked about. So definitely, read HousingWire, listen to podcasts that are really great. And then it's advice from a friend of mine, but compete where you can win. If you're a brokerage that's, 50 agents or 126, like launching your own like private exclusive network is probably not the direction you want to go. You probably want to lean into things like, hey, we're local. These other guys can't be. That's by definition. These guys are not local. So agents that want local, this is us, right? Do you want more personal attention? That's us. We do compete in the tech stack field, on the tech stack field, but a lot of local brokers don't. So make as good as you can possibly make it make sure that you're checking that box, but then find where you really excel. Russell Shaw is an old mentor of mine, and he gave me that advice whenever I was an agent. He said, whatever it is that makes you different and unique, learn how to tell a seller that's in their best interest to work with you because of that. He's like, if you're with a big team, like be able to explain to a seller why working with a big team is the best. If you're a solo agent, be able to explain to a seller why working with a solo agent is the best. And it's the same advice to brokers. What makes you different? What's your unique value prop? Learn it, be able to rattle it off in 60 seconds. So
so my last question, I do want to do a couple bonus round questions, but if you could change one thing about the industry, what would that be?
It would be that 1099 status isn't there anymore, because then every broker would have to invest in every agent they hire. And that's what I think is the biggest problem with the industry, is that most brokerages don't invest very much in their agents.
Okay, great. All right. These are just quick answers. One book that influenced your leadership.
Measure What Matters.
Okay. Favorite local Austin neighborhood, the one that you vibe with the best?
I mean, I live here, right? Northwest Hills, because we're like 10 minutes from downtown, but it feels like you're in like Leave It to Beaver suburbs. So I'm like, my son rides his bike everywhere around here. And then, we can literally Uber to downtown in like 10 minutes. So that's what I love about it. Yeah.
Great. If you weren't in real estate, what would you be doing?
I would today, like if I got to start all over, HVAC company, no question about it. HVAC all day long.
Really? HVAC? Okay. Interesting.
I mean, I'm a big cyclist, and we go on these long rides and have these long conversations. If you want this to go an hour and a half, I can tell you all the reasons why HVAC's the business to get into right now. So
that's all right.
All right.
So my last question, your go-to productivity hack when you're feeling overwhelmed?
Go for a long ride, figure out what you need to do to move the needle, get back and do it. That's my productivity hack. Yeah.
Great. Well, Eric, thanks so much for joining Real Trending. I appreciate having you on.
Tracey, it was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.